Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, former United States Senator Phil Gramm, and a colleague in the Wall Street Journal, voters' choice, growth or stagnation. That's another way to frame November 3rd. Probably some good advice and counsel from Senator Gramm for the Trump administration and congressional Republicans. Remind people of just exactly what Joe Biden's economic plan is in terms of usurious tax rates and hikes on taxes like capital gains that would tend to have a deleterious effect on economic growth. Remind people that this is somebody who is given over to the Green New Deal Marxists. I know that's been off the agenda because of the racial unrest as well as the pandemic, but it's still on the agenda. Been off of our radar, but it's still on their agenda. And so in addition to our discussion with Rafael Manguel that sort of prompts the thinking about framing November in a law and order context, this is the choice, Americans, that you have to make. There are choices to be made, too, with respect to economic growth, and particularly in these precarious times, economic growth out of the double-digit unemployment, the elimination of so many owner-operated businesses, and the concern about long-term stagnation. Do you want another 8-year incremental recovery like we did coming out of the Great Recession, or do you want something that, if not V-shaped, at least gets closer to a U? For more on this, pleased to be joined by Jimmy Pethokoukis, the DeWitt Wallace Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, where he runs the AE Ideas. Sort of see what he just like. Sort of like saying Vin Scully's name. You don't know where the Vin ends and the Scully begins. AE Ideas.
You have
blog.
to work for it.
Yeah, you got to work for it. You got to work for it. No, that's it. And you know what?
AE Ideas.
And I appreciate that.
Nothing is given to you in life, my friend.
There is no free lunch and there's no free think tank acronym either. I got it. Jim, so what about that framing? I'm sure you read Phil Gramm's piece, but the framing about policies that tend to prompt economic growth versus the policies that don't, and who is advocating which ones?
Well, I mean, I think massively, jacking up tax rates. I mean, that's bad. So, I mean, if you're going to look at the good and bad list, I'm not sure exactly what Joe Biden wants to do on taxes. I'm sure they'd be higher. I mean, I think it matters whether just take the corporate tax rate, whether it goes up by 5 points or if it goes up by 15 points. I think that matters. And I'm sure it matters if the tax rate's going to go back. Top tax rate's going to go back to 40%, or is it going to be 40% plus a 15% wealth tax add-on, or whatever you want to call it. So I think that matters. I also worry though that under the current administration, they don't seem to like immigrants very much. And that's pretty important to American growth going forward, when a good chunk of computer scientists, AI scientists, genetic engineers come from someplace else. So I think you have to look at the totality of these plans and not necessarily focus obsessively on what the capital gains tax rate is.
Well, it's not just the capital gains tax rate. I mean, in terms of what he rolled out during the primary, by the way, the corporate tax rate to increase it by 33% from 21 to 28% is not inconsequential, as I think you would concede. And then there's a range of other taxes, particularly those, that are higher income, of course, is consistent with sort of the soak the rich philosophy of engendering equality and economic growth at the same time. But it's not just what he proposed. It is what he has given into. I mean, take a stroll through the congressional Democrat caucuses, why don't you, and tell me what's on the horizon if they had the run of the place.
Well, I look at it like, what do I think is worse for the economy? Do I think going up from a 21% corporate tax rate to a 28% corporate tax rate, which is a little bit above the average of advanced economies and certainly considerably below what it was before, is that worse? for the economy, or is saying that if you're a smart person from another country and you want to come to this country and do a spectacular thing with your life and start a company, go work for a big tech company, that you shouldn't come here? Which is worse for the United States over the next 15 years, a 28% tax rate, or are those people staying home?
Well, it's a false choice.
I mean, I think that's a decision we have to make.
No, I don't think that's a fair choice. They're both bad. I agree with you there. And but the problem is those are one platform plank in the overall economic policy agenda. And so give me a holistic assessment of the agenda of the...
Well, that's a pretty bad one.
Well, I agree.
That's pretty bad.
I agree it is. But you still have to do a holistic assessment because you're getting it all. You're not just getting the things you like and discarding the things you don't like. So in totality, with the socialist Spice Girls driving the policy agenda and Pelosi and Schumer in tow on the Hill, plus a Joe Biden in the White House, in totality, you think that it's a wash or maybe even a net benefit to go with Democrats just because they're less likely to put hard caps on H-1B visas?
So I have one side that would like to bring up the drawbridge to trade and immigration, and then perhaps increasingly, I know it's a lot of sort of these nationalist populists. They don't like the idea that companies lay off people. So I have that kind of stagnation philosophy on one side. And then on the other side, I have a group which seems to be increasingly skeptical of the benefits of capitalism. But, you know, I think I'm very worried where they want to go on trade. They're probably going to be better on immigration. They want higher taxes. Of course, I think they would be maybe spending more on federal R&D, which is probably a good thing. Has anybody learned the lesson from this pandemic that there's also a lot of bad regulations that prevent good things from happening? We've seen that how pro government is.
And which side?
So if you want pro growth,
which side is Which side is the deregulatory side? Which side and which principal has pursued at least a stop on new regulations, if not rolling back some existing regulations? Wasn't that sort of the underreported story of the first 2 years of the Trump administration?
Well, there's been a lot of deregulation. There's been a lot of proposals. How that's actually translated, not so much. But you know, there's time, and you know, right in a second Trump term, maybe you would get more of that.
And on the
I don't know what the second Trump term is going to bring, because all so far I've heard about is that we want to create a statue garden somewhere. So I'm not sure what his regulatory agenda is going forward.
And on the matter of trade, one side, I mean, I'm opposed to protectionist policies just as you are, but I look at what has been advanced and the vote totals that were racked up for what has been advanced in the House and the Senate, and what I see is both sides being protectionist in nature.
I think. Listen, I'm concerned because Bernie Sanders is a super protectionist, and if that's like the direction that party is going, I think that's super concerning. Yeah, that's bad, and I hope that doesn't happen if Biden gets in. I would guess we're going to get a lot more of it if Trump wins re-election, because they'll view that as a vindication. That the trade is bad, and we need to make everything in the United States, and all supply chain should be in the United States, and nothing should be made overseas. So listen, if you believe in a dynamic, open society where there's going to be a lot of change and there's going to be disruption, but overall you'll be better for it. Your kids will live in a world of more prosperity and opportunity. If that's the kind of world you want, it's a little depressing.
Yeah, but don't you think we haven't even felt the economic impact of the lockdown yet? I mean, yesterday, United's planning on cutting 45% of their U.S. workforce because people aren't flying anymore because they've been scared into submission. We're like, I don't know if I should do this if we're putting our lives on the line if we go on an airplane. It's so ridiculous. But and I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think when you look at the numbers for this quarter, when they come out, they'll show a big bounce back, but maybe not as much as what they were going to. I think that obviously people are super concerned about the virus and whether the government says go home or go out. People are going to make their own decisions based on how safe they think it's going to be. And you have to worry about a lot of long-term impacts on the economy going forward, from the from the disintegration of all these small businesses, from people being out of the workforce for a long time, having their skills erode, all the debt. I mean, we are creating a lot of new headwinds for an economy that really wasn't growing particularly fast even before this pandemic. And if we mishandle this, we'll grow even worse after the pandemic.
You wrote this piece for the Week about Wall Street. Wall Street pines for President Biden. Is Wall Street pining for President Biden? Is that a feather in Biden's cap from a free marketeer perspective?
Well, I think the reason I think they don't much like the tax increases, but I think they'll get a better deal on trade. I'm sure they don't like the idea of immigration. I just think the chaos aspect of it, the fact that we're going through this pandemic and it's kind of up to the states and the cities. They don't seem to be getting much guidance or help at the national level. I think that's bad. I think that the level of uncertainty that you don't know that you feel like there's nobody at the wheel. And you know what? We don't need to have a completely centralized society where every decision is made in Washington. But this isn't we're not living under the Articles of Confederation either. So we're supposed to have a bit of guidance at the federal level. And I think they think that's not happening. And there's a bunch of other problems which aren't being dealt with. I mentioned the R&D issue. So I'm sure it's a little bit of a Hobson's choice.
Well, I'm sure you would agree in part that I don't take my policy cues from a bunch of leftist rent-seeking bankers on Wall Street who've been part and parcel of so many of the economic problems that we have.
Call them allocators of capital. They're allocators of capital.
Is that what they are? But I mean, in terms of the federal response,
zero hedge banksters. Are you really the zero hedge guy?
I'm not, but I'm not the Goldman Sachs guy. No, I'm not the Goldman Sachs guy. You think Goldman Sachs?
Beautiful American company.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, to that point, I mean, the lack of federal response, it's an easy thing to say. It's an easy thing to memorialize into a meme. $7 trillion, in addition to all of the resources that have been pulled together across agencies and distributed, and in addition to specifically targeted funding from the PPP to funding for state and local governments and so on and so forth, all of that money that's been expended. And then, yes, in our federalist system, allowing a lot of it to be driven at the state and local level, combined with the fact that, oh, by the way, just in terms of the results, the highest per capita testing in the world here, and a death rate that is basically second in the industrialized West to Germany. So in addition to, again, federalism going both ways, the particular terrible policy choices that were made at the state level, mainly by Democrat governors, that are zeroed in on the 1% of the population that accounts for 50% of the deaths. But this is all to be delivered to Trump's doorstep. Little unfair on the merits.
Well, I'll tell you, we have a really, I think, good fatality rate among countries beginning with a U. That's great. Among everybody else, we're among the worst in the world, even setting aside Andorra and San Marino. So we have one of the highest death rates per million. So that's not a fantastic America First performance. And you want to spend a lot. We spend some money, some like the small business stuff, super helpful. But we spend all this money, and you have all this Fed support, and if all of us are just going to go out and do what we want and act like if we have to wear a mask, we're in some sort of Orwellian dystopia with a boot on our neck, and we can't get the leadership from Washington to say, please wear a mask, I'm going to wear a mask. That is something we should do. We need to become a mask-wearing culture for a while, and it doesn't mean that the next step is going to be chips in our brains. Then it's going to undo all that good stuff. And isn't that what we're seeing now? You have places closing. You have a lot of these economic indicators turning over. 'cause
Right.
we're undoing what we just did.
Well, first,
And
I mean, just
how hard is it? How hard is it for Trump just to say masks are good? I'm going to wear a mask. It's not part of the Soros plot, the Soros gay plot, but yet he keeps retweeting QAnon people. It's not that hard. It really is.
Just first,
Don't be a maniac.
There's a couple of things. Okay, well, so if we're going to be measured in our commentary, does Britain, is that a country that begins with a U? Italy, France, Spain.
Britain begins with a B, Dan.
I know, because you said
It begins with the letter B.
Thank
Facts
you.
are important.
Thank you. Yes, right. So
B.
I'm responding to the United States being only doing well with countries that begin with a U.
I got it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Do you want me to continue? I mean, honestly, in terms of being a maniac, France, Spain, the Netherlands,
We're supposed to
Sweden.
be the world leader in everything. We're supposed to be on the technological and scientific frontier, and to say that, hey, there's worse countries. That's the aim.
Well, wait a second.
I thought we were great again.
Well, wait a second.
Maybe we're modestly good again.
I'm not saying it. I'm just responding to a statement that you made that is just factually incorrect, and I think that's important.
In the world. That's familiar.
We're not, and
we're
not
the worst in the world, Dan.
We are not. Number one. Number two. If you believe the CDC,
we are.
I just gave you.
Per million, we are among the worst.
What does among the worst mean?
That's a pretty good.
What does among mean for you?
Per million, meaning there's only like 6 countries worst, and one of them's Andorra, another is San Marino. That's bad. UK, not doing great. Sweden, not doing great. Other countries, doing much better.
Spain, France.
We're like, there's a lot more countries.
Belgium?
If you want, this makes for fantastic radio, but if you'd like me to pull up the worldometer.
I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at it right now.
There we go.
In addition to the trajectory of the case fatalities, in addition to the source case fatalities, all that contextual information that you want to discard, because you're basically, to me, you sound like you're one of these
million.
These fact-free
Netherlands
hysterics.
Is better, Ireland's better, Chile's better, Peru's better.
Yeah, I know. We can go country.
Better,
we can go country by country.
Germany's better.
I just gave you half a dozen Western countries, and now you're going to give me half a
country.
Italy,
known for being a poorly managed country. Sweden made a choice. A lot of conservatives were like, we want to be like Sweden. Turns out we don't.
What are you talking about?
Swedish death rate is the lowest it's been in months.
We're number 7.
Yeah, okay.
We're number 7.
The Swedish case fatality rate is a fraction of what it is in some of those other countries that you're citing, isn't it?
So we're better. We're better than like 5 major countries.
Honestly, this is so dumb. This is so dumb. You want to say this has been a catastrophic response?
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I know.
That's per million. That's a pretty basic metric. We're not doing well.
Okay. All right. Jim Pethokoukis, the Whitwater Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Thanks for joining us. See you, Jim.
Worldometer will get some hits at least. Okay, go get them.
Yeah, you too.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
We're all aware of national dealers that sell gold and silver. But national dealers? It sounds so impersonal and far away. Guess what? Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is a national dealer, and they're right here in our backyard. With Fox Valley Coins close by, you won't have to relinquish your personal information and money through the mail and hope that you receive what you ordered in the next days, weeks, or months. Most of the time at Fox Valley Coins, you just walk in the store, pick out what you want, pay for it, and walk out the door. It can be that easy. And if you're interested in selling your rare collector coins or currency, Fox Valley Coins specialize in the rare ones. Buying and selling individual coins and currency, as well as all gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and rhodium in coin, bar, and scrap form. They'll even make house calls when appropriate. Fox Valley Coins is 1 light north of I-88 on Route 59 in Naperville. They're closed on Sundays and have been